Hello everyone and welcome to what I'm basically going to be calling a verbal Battlerep. It lacks all the flashy pictures, flashy video that you see in other various Battlereps. That's mainly because for these ones that are following this format I didn't have a camera available, I couldn't record it, I didn't have time, I was too focused on what I was doing. But I want to get into doing the whole Battlereps because that's generally one of the most fun things I can think of doing. So you have to excuse the lack of pictures and visuals, but shouldn't be too much of a problem. It'll give you something to do while you're painting perhaps, or looking through army lists, writing army lists, whatever. I can also, if anyone has any questions, they can ask below. I can give as much detail in the liner notes as possible. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoy, and feel free to comment below. So jumping right into this first of a few verbal Battlereps, I went and attended a local tournament to nearby-ish where I live. It was a 1,000 points Warhammer 40k tournament with no comping whatsoever, so it was just take whatever you want, whatever you can fit in 1,000 points. The only restriction was no super heavies, and that was pretty much it. My list was taken under the pretense of having fun. I knew from the beginning that my 40k army isn't built for competitive, but I wanted to go anyway because it's always fun to kind of just take part in those big events. I am in the process of actually making a more competitive army, but at the moment this was all I had, so I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna go and have some fun and see how well we do. So in this 1,000 point list of mine that I took to the event, I'm playing the Space Marine Minotaur faction, the Forge World faction, because the idea of having basically essentially Spartan Space Marines was really really appealing, and as a result I built a very small, very elite list that doesn't work very well in regards to capturing objectives, but it was a lot of fun anyway. So jumping straight into the list, I'm running Moloch, as would be expected. It's not really a Minotaur list without him. This is one of the problems with having the Minotaurs, is straight from the get-go to even really be justified as a Minotaur list, you have to put a 235 point investment in to bring Moloch to the table even. And that's just, that's for the special, the chapter tactics. You don't get chapter well, you do, but you don't get the special tactics, kind of like the salamanders. If they don't bring their special character, they don't get, rerolls on their flamers or whatnot. This is basically how Moloch works. If you don't bring Moloch, you don't get preferred enemy Space Marines, and if you don't have preferred enemy Space Marines, you're not really a Minotaur, because that's what they're all about. It was kind of a good call on my part, actually, considering how many Space Marine players were actually there. I could have had a field day, but you'll find out why I didn't coming up soon. But yeah, so we could start off with Moloch, and then I had to take Ivanus, because if I've got Moloch on the table, my idea was I'm just gonna make a bit of a Death Star. Especially given what I had model wise, I wasn't free to make that much, so I made one hell of a Death Star. You're looking at 390 points in my HQ choices. That's Moloch and Ivanus there together. Then they had a small retinue of Honor Guard, 3 Honor Guard with Relic Blades and a chapter banner. Against Space Marines, that's pretty sickening. You're looking at Ivanus giving 2 attacks to the group on the charge, the Honor Banner giving a 3rd attack in general, and Honor Guard have a base amount of attacks of 2 each, so you're looking at 5 attacks on the charge per guy with a Relic Blade. That's 5 strength 6 attacks, AP 3. And you can see what that would do to a Space Marine. Pretty much insta-kill an entire unit. Moloch ended up with his, now that he's basically been updated to have 4 attacks, he ends up coming out at, what, 7 attacks on the charge, strength 6, AP 2, which is pretty insanely devastating. Ivanus as well comes in with around 6 attacks, and I can opt to use the Power Fist. I strike last, but if he's against any kind of vehicle, well, you can say goodbye to that. So that's basically my big block of Death Star. But it doesn't end there, because, you know, how would they actually get anywhere without a transport? And that's where the Spartan Assault Tank comes in at 295. You're looking at around about a 700-ish point transport. No, an 800-ish point transport. No, what am I saying? Transport. 800-ish point Death Star, which is pretty ridiculous. Even I find that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, with the transport included, that's crazy. I took 2 units of 5 tactical marines, taking the minimum here. I gave them plasma cannons, which was dumb. It was so dumb. Like, you know, you take a small unit of 5, you've got a combat squad, you can take, I don't know, 1 special or 1 heavy weapon, and I was like, ooh, I can take a plasma cannon. That was stupid, because in regards to actually getting objectives, even less chance of getting objectives now that I can't move and fire. Basically what the entire purpose of that unit is for. If I'd taken a melter, I could have ran around the place, basically nuking like some high armor stuff, or attacking a tank that drove past. Instead I was kind of rooted at one spot for the sake of not sacrificing my plasma cannon shot. And that was pretty dumb. That was pretty dumb. But yeah, I haven't played Warhammer 40k in quite a long time. Again, I was playing for fun. I didn't really think it through. So yeah, that happened. Another thing that caught me off guard quite a bit, which I didn't know. Usually when I play 40k, especially at like 1,000 points, it's on a 2x2 board. This is the battle board size that Games Workshop do. They do their blocks. You know, usually 2x2 is more than enough to take up a decent amount of table space. Well, we were using 2x3, which suddenly, those extra battle boards worth of space was intense, like intense crazy. The amount of space you had to cover suddenly, it felt like it just doubled. And I don't know if anyone bothered to count, but I only had 15 miniatures on the table at any one time, and that's at the start of the game. So and 2 obviously with plasma cannons, and then now you start to see why that was so dumb. Suddenly the board is even bigger than it would have been, and I'm stuck here with plasma cannons that can't move. Otherwise they basically become a waste of 30 points, which they inevitably did. So coming into my first game, I didn't really know what to expect. I got paired up against Space Marines. I was really happy about that. And then I found out what kind of Space Marines. It was a complete mobility based White Scars army, and I hated it. I hated playing this with a passion. It was absolutely horrible to play. I'm sitting there with, well, I can't be that critical. From a strategical point, I knew from the start that there was no way I could actually win this game. It was a physical impossibility based on how mobile they were. They had just a regular captain. He wasn't much special, running, I don't know, nothing special. He didn't even get to attack. They'll put it that way. He got into combat. I didn't get to see any of his war gear. They had a unit of 9 bikes escorting him around. Then there was like a unit of 3, a unit of 3, multiple units of 3 bikes, 2 units of 5. Is it 2 units of 5? 3 units of 5, 1 unit of 9, a squadron of 3 land speeders, and 2 Thunderhawk gunships, versus my 15 guys that are really, really slow. So needless to say, I completely lost the objective game. I think I'm not gonna put a spoiler on it. I'll find out what happens as it went along. But it was pretty bad, as you can probably imagine. So we're going out to the first turn. I got second turn, which didn't really make a difference because I didn't have the mobility. It made a difference for my opponent, who immediately from the first turn took 4 objectives. I can't remember what exactly mission we were playing. I believe it was mission 2 from Maelstrom of War. Essentially there were 6 objectives, 1 within each square, each battle board of the table, direct center of each battle board. So there were 6 objectives. They were random objectives, so we had to roll to see if they did anything particularly special. And you know, it was based purely off of card draw. The victory points gained were straight from the deck. So what we drew was what we got. And on the first turn, my opponent dropped in 4 victory points, dumped 4 cards, and yeah, he was immediately over 2/3 of the table and had pretty much claimed everything. My first turn, I drove up. Deployment was kind of, for me, it wasn't very spread out. For him, he was kind of scattered all over. We're thinking of the board in a horizontal kind of way. He was equally spread out throughout the entire length. Myself, not so much. I was huddled into one corner because I didn't really have a choice, and I didn't go next to the objectives because I couldn't cash in any cards to get them. So my first turn, he moves up. He's equal everywhere. So I'm kind of not sure entirely what to do here. I take the Spartan assault tank, and I essentially run it straight down the middle. Like the board at the moment is your average battle board. There's some trees which are in the bottom left hand corner of the table, which is where my Space Marines are trying to hide out with their plasma cannons. There's a bridge connecting basically the two sets of tables, because there's a river which is difficult, not impassable, but it's enough to really annoy people and slow them down. So we had a big bridge in the middle, and there were kinds of ruins and trees scattered, but they didn't really come into play at any point because the objective grabbing was real. But so yeah, like my first turn, I just kind of shuffle up. I take some pop shots, take off a hull point from one of the land speeders. Nothing else really happens. I fire the plasma cannons, take out a few bikes, they jink all the bolters, nothing really happens there. And then his second turn, he comes in and reinforcements arrive. Both the gunships arrive together, and yeah, it's like a big mess from here on out. I am getting torn up from shooting everywhere. Thankfully, the Spartan assault tank attracts the attention as it was intended to. All of the low AP multiple shot stuff like the assault cannons couldn't do anything. They were forced to shoot, but the missiles of strength 8 needing 6s to even glance to hurt it. He really wasn't equipped to hurt my Spartan assault tank at all, which was always a relief. So that was basically a shuffle round. He decided to focus a lot of his other fire, or regular fire, that couldn't actually hurt it on my Marines, and my Marines were dropping like flies. I think I lost 1 unit of 5 in the first turn, and the plasma cannon of the other. In my turn, oh no, in his turn, he actually did, because of the objective grabbing that he was doing, he did actually approach my Spartan assault tank. So he wasn't too far away from it, even after the first turn. And on his second turn, I suppose because you have to have the objectives still at the end of the turn, that meant that he was essentially keeping that objective to hand stuff in at the end of the turn. So his points went up to 6 at the end of his turn there, but he left it too close. And I don't know whether he underestimated what I had in the Spartan, or if he didn't really know. This was kind of a closed list. We didn't really know what each other were using, what each other's stuff had. That's why I can't really give a very good in-depth detail on what he was using, other than how it appeared to me. So in my turn 2, I move up, my Death Star gets out, all those bikes are basically staring them in the face. I don't shoot them, it would be a waste. Instead, I do manage to actually bring down one of the gunships, which I have to apologise, I think I called it a Thunderhawk gunship earlier. It's actually just a Storm Talon gunship, 2 of those that he had. And I managed to clip one with a 6, he failed to jink it, and I actually put one out of those out of commission on my second turn, which was quite impressive considering I didn't bring any Skyfire whatsoever, and I was fighting 2 flyers. I was quite happy. I'm glad he didn't bring the las cannon ones, otherwise they would have been a real thorn in my side hitting that Spartan. So yeah, the plasma cannon, the two squads of the plasma cannons are pretty much already dead at this point. I can't fight what they've got coming towards me. I did draw an objective which was right behind them in the trees, so I did the only thing I could and try and grab some points. So they bolted back through the forest, sat on that objective, secured myself I think 2 victory points or 1 victory point in that turn. I was, you know, grabbing everything I could before they essentially got wiped off the map because they weren't sticking around. Now the funny part, the underestimation of Moloch, as I said, I disembarked out of the Spartan assault tank and my Death Stars sitting there, these 3 Honor Guard, Ivanis and Moloch, run into a unit of 9 bikes. I don't know if they were special bikes or not, but there were 9 bikes, and his captain. And it was quite funny. The Overwatch did absolutely nothing. They shot, nothing happened. We all piled in, made it reasonably comfortably, and Moloch goes in. He hits 7 times successfully, because he hits on a 3+. He has preferred enemy Space Marines rerolling 1s. So chop chop chop. He basically he ends up killing 5. And the only reason he ends up killing 5 is because they are toughness 5 for being on bikes and skilled rider and all that nonsense. So he goes in, 3s to hit, 3s to kill, AP2. He kills 5 by himself. That leaves 4 bikes and the captain. Now, I offered the challenge to the captain, which was refused. Not that it really mattered. Ivanis went next. His initiative was simultaneous with Moloch, so he added another 3 casualties to the list. Quite surprisingly, only being strength 4, he managed to somehow knock out 3 bikes. I was quite impressed. So yeah, that was, you know, he was down to just the captain, 2 bikes left. It was pretty bad, and then its initiative step pile in. The Honor Guard move in, the bikes move in, everyone's all back into combat. The bikes attack, they don't do anything. The captain attacks Ivanis, the chaplain, which was a bit silly because it didn't do anything. You know, the one guy over ward save, but not that it mattered because this guy didn't have an AP2 weapon anyway, so it just hit the Artificer armor and bounced off. And then the Honor Guard went 15 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, AP 3, no save for the bikes, and it topples the captain, and it topples the bikes, and yeah, they go down without much of a challenge, really. They did no wounds to me whatsoever, and you know, a big chunk of his army just went down. And I think at that point he realised that he couldn't really fight me, that he had to basically go back to the plan of just running around me. If I run up to an objective, leave me alone. And that's pretty much what he did, actually, because after that point I was kind of sitting there in no man's land, and I consolidated back. His turn, he basically moved up, finished the plasma cannon like combat squad like I knew he would. He wasn't going to let that live around, and then he decided to put all his firepower into my Honor Guard squad, which is quite funny because he didn't have any AP2 stuff whatsoever. And you know, I just saved pretty much all of it. I did lose, unfortunately, I think 2 Honor Guard in this entire round of shooting. That includes like plasma gun or plasma pistol, assault cannon, heavy bolters, everything he had, he just pumped into it. And that was kind of, that was a little bit sad. So in my turn I decide to re-embark and drive off. So I want my Spartan tank to take me away, bring me to where all the other bikes are on the other side of the map, because the only thing I could really do was basically try and curb his ability to hand in those cards and give myself an opportunity to do it instead. And that went bad. Like, I think for 3 turns he had tried to basically missile my Land Raider, because it was the only thing that could actually damage it, and nothing happened. And then I try and take a shortcut off the edge of the bridge, and I immobilize myself, take a whole point off, bam, that's out of commission. So yeah, that went really well. I was still able to fire. I took another whole point off of one of the flyers. I was quite impressed. The machine spirit is really, really helpful. Like, I never really used to understand how useful the machine spirit was until it started to come into play. I mean, yeah, sure, you're going to be snap firing at the flyers anyway, but at least I can full ballistic skill towards one person at least, you know. And the ability to split fire, meaning that, you know, because I'm a Land Raider, I block my own line of sight between sponsons, so the right one can't shoot the same, you know, shoot to the left. So it would be a waste if it wasn't for the fact that I could, you know, redirect to the shots. And that's kind of why I like the Spartan Assault Tank. Going off on a bit of a tangent here, the Spartan Assault Tank is only about 50 points more than your average Land Raider, and it has the equivalent firepower to an entire Land Raider on each side of it. You've got 2 twin-link las cannons on each side. That's 2 shots reroll miss on each side, whereas a regular Land Raider has, you know, 1 twin-link las cannon on each side. So you can't really complain about that. But yeah, so I just immobilized myself on the bridge and nerfed my, like, I curbed my own ability to capture any more objectives. It was absolutely insane and really annoying. So his turn is basically, you know, he puts another whole point of damage with a lucky missile shot from the land speeders onto my Spartan Assault Tank. That's all he can do, because he doesn't have the firepower to do anything else. This is like, he literally can't do anything. His 4th turn was basically just handing in more objective points that I could do nothing about. So now with an immobilized Spartan Assault Tank, it's my 4th or 5th turn now? I believe, no, my 4th turn now, yeah, that's right. So it's my 4th turn now. I have to disembark, I don't get a choice. I get to move afterwards, thankfully, because the vehicle didn't move at all, so it's not a complete waste. I do run out the back of that at like 6 inches. I split the unit into two. Ivanis takes the remaining members of the Honor Guard to an objective point that's nearby. He's got a bunch of bikes and whatnot on it. I take Moloch over to try and tackle an entire squadron of land speeders and a flyer. A bit optimistic, but it actually went fairly well. It was quite funny, and I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't charge. It was basically me running out there like, yeah, come on, let's fight. I fired some las cannons into the bikes because I couldn't move, and you know, everything useful was behind me. I managed to take a whole point off with the other one, hitting a land speeder again, a different one unfortunately, so still no dead land speeder. And yeah, that was pretty much my entire turn, because I basically snubbed out my own Spartan assault tank trying to take a shortcut, and then I'm left foot slogging across the map. Now in his turn, he puts one Storm Talon, all its firepower into Moloch, and decides it's not worth it. Actually no, he puts an entire Storm Talon and an entire squadron of crack missile land speeders into Moloch, and then decides that it wasn't worth it because he didn't take a single wound. Nothing got through. The Storm Talon just didn't have the AP for it, and sitting there with a Storm Shield, he really didn't care about the crack missiles either. So at that point, my opponent definitely acknowledged the fact that it was kind of pointless. And then he swapped all his firepower, what was left anyway, onto Ivanis, and oh, my dice rolls, I just kept rolling ones. I lost so many wounds that my opponent actually had the courage to charge me, and that's quite amusing. I lost all of the Honor Guard, they were shot to pieces, and Ivanis was brought down to one wound with a bolt gun. It's kind of depressing considering, you know, that's just the rolls. That's how the rolls go. So it's Ivanis at one wound, and my opponent's like, I think I can take him, and he runs in with his bikes, 3 bikes versus Ivanis. I don't get any charge bonus, so I'm only on 3 attacks, and he fails to do anything to me. Doesn't do anything. Ivanis saves it all. Is like running into a brick, and I didn't attack first because I opted to use my Power Fist, because Ivanis thankfully has the option of a Power Fist, and I rolled 3 4-ups. He hits all 3 of them, and then 2s to kill, re-rolling 1s with the Power Fist because preferred enemy space marine. He wiped out the entire remains of that bike squadron after being charged in a single round of combat. I can just picture 3 bikes speeding up, just like slamming towards him. You know, you've got not Impact Hits, you've got Hammer of Wrath going in, you know, they're charging in, and then Ivanis just slams his Power Fist into the floor and flips 3 bikes over his shoulder, and that whole thing just explosions everywhere. It's a Michael Bay movie all over again. So that was pretty awesome. Shame it would not last, as my turn, you know, Ivanis runs up to a uncontested objective and allows me to hand in a couple of cards. Thankfully I had doubles of the same place, so I was able to get myself up to 4 victory points. Well, 3 victory points, slay the warlord, 4 victory points, and that was essentially where my points stopped. That was the last point I got. Moloch shot one of the land speeders with his spear because he can. One-time use, strength 8, AP 2, and he blew it up. That was pretty impressive. The other land speeder was too far away to charge, so I couldn't get it. And Yeah, that was essentially my turn. Like I couldn't really do anything. Claim objectives, shoot a land speeder, try and combat the other one, which I completely flubbed. I didn't reach even with Crusader. So it's his turn now. He puts his entire army's worth of firepower now into Ivernus because he really wants those points just in case of, you know, like if the tournament gets to a point of where it's a draw, all of the points that he had gained throughout the entire tournament would be added up and compared to his opponent, and you know the winner would be decided on that. So it was actually kind of quite important for him to claim these victory points wherever he could. And Ivernus, being like a god, completely survived absolutely everything that was shot at him, apart from random unit or random remains. It wasn't even a full unit at this point because during my turn the Spartan assault tank was always just firing into bikes because that's the only thing it could reliably hit, even though they would jink it on a 3+ because white scars are really annoying. Yeah, so there was 3 bikes left. He had those 3 and like another couple of bikes, I believe, or they might have been the only bikes he actually had left. Because at this point, up until, you know, my Spartan assault tank immobilized itself, I was like, I could actually table this guy. I think I could actually table. Oh, then the Spartans immobilized. That's ruined all my dreams. So yeah, three random bikers decide to just, you know, he's basically at the end of his tether trying to kill my guys because they just refuse to die, and he fires 3 twin-link bolters at Ivernus and it kills him. I think there was only 1 wound and I roll a 1 and Ivernus takes his last wound and falls over. Yeah. So anticlimactic. You just, you know, you've got like gunships shooting at you, you've got missiles coming from across the board, and you're just like taking the hits, bouncing off of them, and then suddenly you get shot in the back by a bolt gun from a bike and you just fall over. It's yeah, that's not too good. So then I was in a tough spot because everything from then on for the rest of the game essentially nothing really happened. Everything I fired at seemed to just jink my shots. Like I'm firing these las cannons and they're just being jinked after jink after jink, and I know, you know, it's me praying for an unlucky roll. It must have been the same kind of frustration that he was feeling in regards to, you know, my Honor Guard or Ivernus and Moloch, because, you know, his stuff just wasn't dying. I'm putting strength 9 AP 2 shots into regular bikes and they're jinking it. It's madness. I reckon, like, if you were really driving that fast and you tried to jink something that was like a giant pulse of pure energy, I think that would just blow you up even harder than normal. Like, you know, you try and side it and it would just, you know, rip the entire side off the bike and send you flying. But that's just my opinion. He gave up on the Spartan assault tank because it still had 3 hull points left and the game could end at any moment. So he spent the next... We had 7 turns, so that was the end of the 4th, 5th. So he spent essentially 2.5 turns focus firing Moloch, or Moloch's running around trying to chase a land speeder. And I could have caught it because chapter tactics say that I get an additional inch on my charge. I have Crusader, so I get to roll an extra dice, pick the highest, and you know, Moloch's like chasing around after this after this land speeder, which he never gets because I keep flubbing the roll. Like I need 1/6 to try and jump in because he's trying not to leave the objectives too far, but at the same point that he's being kind of risky, because if I'd rolled a 6 and gone 13 throughout the entire distance, like movement, charge, 13 inches tops, I would have actually caught him. But I couldn't do it. But he spent 3 times shooting at Moloch and he didn't take a single wound. That guy is made of, I don't know, stronger stuff than anything I've ever played before. It was quite amusing. It makes you less sad that you took 300. You had to spend 235 points on the guy just to have your army be what it is, because when you see him taking so many hits, so much damage, like my opponent throughout the course of the game had used his entire army against this guy. The commander in combat with, you know, his 9 bikers, he's shot him with like all the flyers, the land speeders, the bikes, and this guy's just been like, no. I've got like 3-4 wounds, and he's just like, I don't care, keep shooting. I will gladly just, you know, walk off at the end of the day with all your ammunition in my arms. But sadly, that wasn't enough. So I actually lost that game, and that put me into the losers bracket, which I don't really mind. I was expecting the game to get a little bit easier from then on. You know, maybe I wouldn't be punished. And so, you know, he got 9 objectives at the end of that thing. I got 4, even with Slay the Warlord, and that was a loss. Out of, you know, the options of what I could have been put up against, I think that was an unlucky draw. I think that unlucky draw against my enemies kind of haunted me throughout the entire thing. It's like, yeah, Space Marines, I've got preferred enemy on you. Oh no, you're all bikes, toughness 5, really mobile, I've got 15 guys, I'm slow as hell. Oh crap. And there were a lot of Space Marines. I mean, there were a lot of Space Marines, there were a lot of Tyranids, there was stuff there that I would have liked to have fought. I would have liked to have fought Orcs. They were there. I would like to have fought Tyranids. They were there. I would like to have fought the Space Wolves. They were there thrice. There was 3 sets of Space Wolves there. I'd have liked to have fought the Blood Angels. They were there as well. There was a Deathwing army which was all bikes, which I'm glad I didn't fight. There was the other Space Marine army which I did fight, as I said in this Battlerep, which was also really mobile, which I didn't like. There was 2 Grey Knights armies which I could have been paired up against. I think the representation was easily about 75% of the people there were Space Marines, and 60 to 70% of those Space Marine players were the kind of Space Marines where they would come at me, willingly or not, they would run at me because they were kind of combat oriented, and I didn't play one of them. So I think I'm going to end that there. I hope this experiment isn't too bad. I know that there's no visual representation of the board. It's kind of like you know, if I was just chatting to you on the street and, you know, you asked me how did it go, and I was basically like, yeah, but this and this and this, you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. But, you know, I hope you found it slightly entertaining, maybe a little amusing or insightful. I know that this entire tournament was an eye-opener to me. And yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the line notes. If you enjoyed, I guess it's kind of more like a podcast than it is an actual video. But if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you like what you heard or saw, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. So until then, take care.